Hello and welcome to the brief guide to cybersecurity. I'm Caleb and I'm here today to answer the question. In a world where data breaches occur on a regular basis, different security methods, from the humble password to more recent developments in biometric encryption, are becoming a key part in the fight for our online security. What are the best ways to protect and manage one's online identity in a future where the field of digital security is always changing? So the fact that you're watching this one online leads me to believe that you're one of the many internet users out there in the world today. Well, rest easy, because the internet is a very safe place and chances are that it's very unlikely that you'll ever be the target of hackers. Right? Wrong. You can never rest easy, because the fact is that data breaches are common occurrences, and the bad news is that it's only a matter of time before your data falls into the hands of the bad guys. Now, we do need to realise that no one can ever be 100% immune to data breaches. That's one of the sad realities of the internet. But there are steps that we can all take to drastically improve our security online, and that's where my guide will help you. You see, I've done the research work for you, and after considering expert sources and analysing their information, I've concluded that there are 3 main areas of safe practice that you can pay attention to in order to keep your data safe. Now, number 1 is how you can create and manage passwords. The next one I've got is we need to keep in mind who we give our data to, and I've also come up with some extra steps that we can use to secure our data online. So let's start off by talking about passwords. Passwords. They're the basic lock and key to your digital door, and they're a vital and exponentially growing part of our everyday lives due to the fact that the average internet user has accounts to a growing number of different services. My advice for the most secure passwords boils down to 3 basic laws. Now, the first one is we need to be using unique passwords. The next one is we need to use long passwords. And the third one is that our passwords should be nice and complicated. So as I mentioned, the first rule for passwords is that they all should be unique. So never, I need to repeat that, never ever ever use the same password twice. Or 3 times, or 4 times, just use every password once. That's all they are good for. If a service is compromised, the hacker can take the password that they've broken from one of your services and try it out on all your other ones. So that's why we really only can use passwords once. The next thing is that we should try and use nice and long passwords. So as a password gets longer, the security that it provides you grows exponentially. Now, a downside to having long passwords is that they're, let's be honest, very hard to remember. However, a great way around this is to use a little trick called coming up with passphrases. Now, a passphrase is basically a password, but instead of being made up of, random words, random letters, random numbers, or whatever, a passphrase is made up of a string of memorable words stuck together. Now, typically a password or passphrase should be at least 14 characters long. However, you can get away with having an 8-character password, but only if you're using multi-factor authentication. More on that later. A nice good example of a passphrase might be, "The Ford Mustang is the best." So instead of just using 6 random words, we've actually got a sentence that makes sense and is definitely easy to remember. Now, the next thing that we need to keep in mind when working with passwords is we should try and make them nice and complicated. Now, that means opening up the range of characters that is in said password. So for instance, you want to use letters, you want to use numbers, and when we're talking about letters, we want the uppercase letters, we want lowercase letters, we want special characters, because as the pool of characters that you can choose to make your password out of increases, not only does the security of the password increase, but it increases exponentially. Now, a good idea for memorability is try to incorporate letters, numbers, and characters into your passphrases that we learnt about earlier. Well, now you're probably wondering, how are you going to remember so many unique, long, complicated passwords? Well, I understand that it might be tempting to get your little book out and write them down. Or maybe you want to make a text file on your desktop called passwords and list them in there. Don't do it! Because writing down your passwords, or even worse, storing them on a file on your computer, it's just like leaving the key to your door in the door. In fact, one of my sources even told the story of when a high-ranking USA Department of Justice employee went through airport security, had their laptop, put it through the scanner. Problem being, they had a sticker on their laptop with their passwords written down on it. Not good! However, don't worry, because I do have a solution for you. Use a password manager. Now, what's a password manager, you're probably wondering? Well, a password manager is a service that stores all of your passwords for you in a secure and encrypted form. Now, all of your passwords are kept behind what's known as a master password. The master password is the one password you have to remember. Now, your master password does have to be a good password. It should be a nice, long, beefy passphrase. I want to see letters, numbers, special characters, and definitely, again, length. Now, you're probably thinking, well, gee, what happens if my password manager gets hacked? How's that any different to the text file on my desktop if my computer gets hacked? Well, good password managers store their passwords in encrypted form. Now, this means that if a hacker breaches the servers of a password manager, for instance, they actually need to know your specific master password to unlock any of your other passwords. This also prevents employees of a password management company accessing your passwords. Now, we need to talk about who we're giving all of our data to. Now, all of my sources have emphasized the need to be proactive and attentive to your online security when it comes to thinking about who you're giving your data to. So, you wouldn't have a sign on your front door welcoming intruders with a nice itemized list of all your belongings, so you need to pay that same level of attention when using the internet. As a result, one of my main research conclusions is to always remember that the more information you give out to anyone, the higher chance you have of being hacked. It's as simple as that. Social media. We all love it. But social media sites such as Facebook, Instagram, and even TikTok are particularly popular among our younger generations. But they're rich sources of personal information that we often give out willingly. Attention to the types of sites that you use and whatever information you give to them is of utmost importance in securing your digital life. Now, legitimate and security-conscious organisations such as governments and banks will always use encryption at both the transport and storage level for their user data. But while most companies will tell you that your information is safe and secure, there's little guarantee for a user to know exactly how their information is being handled, and unfortunately the big companies that have lots of your private information are generally favourite targets for hackers. Again, there's serious consequences of data breaches, such as having your banking assets taken over, or even your identity being used to commit criminal activities. Now, I've got some extra steps for you to take in mind when considering your online security. Now, the first thing that comes to mind is multi-factor authentication. Now, generally speaking, there are 3 ways that a system can verify someone's identity. In the past, one method was usually sufficient, until the hackers became more proficient and data breaches became prevalent. However, combining 2 or more methods can greatly increase security. This practice is known as multi-factor authentication. In basic terms, to verify your identity, a computer system can ask for something you know, something you have, or something you are. Now, by using only a password, you're employing only one of those factors, that being something you know. However, a now common method of multi-factor authentication that's being employed everywhere is a requirement that a code be sent to your phone, either through SMS or a separate authenticator app, which means you're adding the something you have, your phone, to your security stack. At the highest level of the security scale is using multi-factor authentication, which incorporates biometric identification of an individual through unique physical markers such as iris recognition, facial recognition, fingerprint recognition, or voice recognition. And this then uses the third factor, something you are. Now at the moment, biometric authentication is considered the strongest possible security feature, as only you are you. My sources have indicated that there's an increasing move towards multi-factor authentication, and it will become a more standard way of protecting online security and identity going into the future. Now, for a final note. The innovations and advances in digital technology have increased exponentially over just the last 10 years. It's a rapidly changing field, and this is why protecting your online identity and security will have limitations for several reasons. Now, we certainly can't forget that there are many awesome benefits to technological advances. However, there may also prove to be some really negative side effects. Now that you've listened to my guide, I believe that by following and utilising the information I've provided, you can enjoy your internet experience as safe as possible and minimise breaches to your data. I'd like to wish happy and safe internet usage to you. I'd like to thank you again for watching my guide. All of my research sources are on screen at the moment. If you'd like a version of my guide that you can flick through in your own time or even share with some friends, you're more than welcome to visit cyberguide.calebrodgers.com. Take care online.